Alright guys, so we're going to go through how a bill becomes a law and basically walk you through that really quick. So we're talking about the lawmaking process with the brain teaser being what's the main job of Congress, General Assembly? Basically making a law. They both have the same job as making a law. Congress makes national laws. The General Assembly makes Virginia laws because they are basically the state version of Congress. So you're going to see a lot of things that are the same here, but they're just going to have different names. Instead of doing it for the national level, they're just doing it at the state level. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll be able to answer these 4 questions. So, officials that are elected to serve in the state, national legislators make laws. We've gone over that. At the national level, again, it's congressmen, could be the House of Representatives or the Senate. In Virginia, it's the General Assembly, or it could be the Virginia Senate. They are both bicameral. So, bicameral meaning 2 houses. We've gone over that enough. Again, same thing. They're both bicameral, meaning 2 houses. I know I repeat myself sometimes. So let's talk about what they can and can't do. First off, we're going to talk about an express power. So these are the ones specifically listed in the Constitution. Now, write down the wording as it is here. Let me make sure that's all it is. Yeah, okay. Specifically listed in the Constitution. Because they, it's basically their way of saying that I can open up the Constitution, and I'm going to have my little notepad app here so I can add things to it. I can open up the Constitution, and I can read word for word the president has the power to veto. I can read word for word in the Constitution that that the Congress is bicameral. It says that in the Constitution. So specifically listed in the Constitution is just another way of saying you can read it word for word. Let's get that like that. So you can read it word for word. Another thing they might be called, because, hey, let's make it harder, is they might be called enumerated powers. They're the exact same thing as expressed. So if you ever see that phrase, they mean the exact same thing. Don't worry about it. Don't freak out about it. But that's basically these powers. So some examples would be like, for instance, Congress has the power to impeach. It says that in the Constitution. Congress controls the money, power of the purse. It says that in the Constitution. Power to establish courts. It says these things in the Constitution. So again, word for word. The opposite being implied powers. So these are ones not listed in the Constitution but used to carry out express powers. So these are the ones where they kind of stretch the wording a little bit. Uh, eh, think of it as stretching. I'll say wording. That works. There we go. Oh, let me get it back up there. So your mom says you can't go out with your friends until you clean your room. Well, you went up to your room and you put away 5 items. You picked up 5 toys off the ground. Technically, you cleaned your room. Now, did you clean your room the whole way? No. But that's not what your mom said. Your mom said clean your room. Now, aside from getting your butt beat because, you didn't follow directions, but do you see how you could be technically right in that situation? It's not, maybe that's not what your mom meant. Maybe it is what your mom meant. They use these powers that aren't maybe listed word for word in the Constitution, but they've gotten them over time. So, for instance, the Louisiana Purchase. I know you guys are all aware of that. It doesn't say that the president has the power to use federal money to buy land, but that's what he did. And we look back at it as like, oh, that was a great idea. But at the time, there was this argument, and there's 2 different ways of reading it. I'm going to get into a little bit, but it's not going to be on the test, called strict constructionism versus loose. How should we read it word for word and only interpret the Constitution that way? That's strict. Or should we the founders made this document to, change over time. So I think that meant this. It's all in how you interpreted the words. So implied is where they kind of took that loose interpretation and applied it to, the powers of the government. So the difference being is we have again expressed where it's in there word for word. Implied's like, yeah, it kind of says that. Yeah, go ahead, do it. Um, so uh, again, they write laws. It really wants to make you. But one thing that gets often looked at is why are they writing laws? They're writing it to fix a problem. Um, so, for instance, the reason we all wear seatbelts, well, a lot of people were getting in car accidents and dying. We made it a law to wear seatbelts. Less people are dying in car accidents. It was a problem. Congressman, it was told to congressmen. They realized there was a problem. They made a law. It fixed it. So they fixed a problem. And there are some powers that basically Congress, uh, nobody gets. The Constitution says, nah, nobody's going to do this. So, like, if it's an amendment, but it's in the Constitution where it says, you don't have to have troops stay at your home. Because remember, we got really mad at the British for doing that. So there are certain powers that no one gets, and they're just called denied powers because they're denied that power. Uh, this is like we've gone over interest groups. We've gone how you guys can do this. You can write letters. You can help campaign. However, this is one of those things where the SOL likes to word things a certain way. So this phrasing you might see again, hint, hint, wink, wink type deal. Individuals and interest groups help shape legislation. So this helping shape legislation here. So let me just do this. Help shape is kind of like a metaphor to make. So or I should say help make. All right. So that's all they're saying, but they're going to say it this way. That's the problem. So I just want to make you guys aware it means the same exact thing. All right, so let's talk about the process. Now I'm going to go over this in another video, the one you're doing tomorrow, but I just want to give you, let's get started on doing it today. So the first thing is they have to write the bill. Again, they're writing in response to a problem. So they get the idea. You'll see in the Schoolhouse Rock videos, hey, we got to have this thing fixed. So the bill is introduced, and then it goes to a committee. So the bill gets introduced, goes to committee. The bill is then debated. I'm going a little too fast. Let's go there. So the bill gets introduced. They might say, instead of introduced, it might say, if I can type, proposed. They might go that route. So the second part is committees. Well, what is a committee? It's also one of your words. Small group here, but it's going to be a small group of congressmen. But they're going to meet because I don't know if you know this, but people don't always agree on things. So let's see. Should we have 10 people arguing about a problem? Or should we bring up every single problem in front of 435 people? The idea is after the bill gets introduced or proposed, whichever wording you want to use, okay, they're going to a committee because they're supposed to specialize. So like if it was a bill about guns, there's a committee devoted to gun research and things like that, or a bill about trafficking and about traffic research. You get the idea. They focus on those things. And they're supposed to fine tune it before it gets brought out to everybody to argue, because everybody's going to have their opinion. So that's the first two steps. So step 1, step 2. Step 3. Now we get to debate. So debate is basically the academic word for argue. Okay, arguing doesn't always have to be a bad thing, but they gotta, they're gonna say, this is what I think. Well, this is what I think, and they're gonna have their discussion about it. You can also think of it as discussion if that helps. All right. So, and you guys can always pause the video. So I just want to delete that. So they argue, and now they vote. And I don't like looking back on it. I always explain this in person, but the way I write it is a little bit weird here. So step one, we've got, introduce. Step two is committee. 3 is debate. 4 is vote. And I'm going to kind of space in. This is kind of like a hidden step. So let's say a bill starts in the House. It has to repeat steps 1 through 4 in the Senate. So when I say that here, repeat steps 1 through 4 in whichever house it didn't start in. Stayed in, start in. Yeah. All right, there we go. Oh, my mouse. My mouse has been acting up recently. So it's got to do all 4 steps. It's going to go to the House, and let's say it gets approved in the House. Well, it has to restart all of it from step 1 and do it all in the Senate. So let's do steps 1 through 4. I'll come back to this on the next one. So they vote on it. Yes, no. Okay, if it's obviously no, the bill dies. But if you vote yes in both houses, then it's going to be step 5. It is either signed or vetoed by the president. So this is the national lawmaking. Now, it's not really, you know what, I'm jumping ahead before I even tell you the word changes. So the bill, let's say the bill gets vetoed. So the Congress put the big rubber stamp of no on it. So the next thing that happens is that Congress can override, which we've talked about through checks and balances. Congress can override the veto with a 2/3 vote. Okay, so that's the process. Now, all of this is at the national level. Okay, but if I change it to state, and remember, you can always just freeze right here, and this gives you a kind of a short version of it. All right, if I change this to state, number 1 stays the same, number 2 stays the same, number 3 stays the same, number 4 stays the same. The hidden step stays the same. But at the national level, right, if I go back to the national level, steps 1 through 4, all of this, okay, was done by the House of Representatives. Let's make that a little bigger. In the Senate, at the state, and the president. So we have president. So we got House of Reps, Senate, president. At the state level, all we're doing is I change this one to delegates. I put the word Virginia in front of Senate, and I change president to governor. That's it. Everything else stays the same. It's just different job titles doing it. And obviously at the state level, they're making laws that affect the state. Oh, and instead of it being called Congress, it's going to be called General Assembly. So don't get, messed up just because the names are different. It's the same exact process the whole way, just with different names. Let's see, I think that's it for this one. Here's the video, but I'm going to put that in the other one, so it probably won't be here when you get to watch it. So what's going to happen here is when I'm going to go back and edit this Nearpod a little bit and put some activities for you guys to do. I want you to answer the activities, review. This probably should take up the rest of class. If you have time, the idea is you work on your glossary. All right. And that should be it. And this way you guys can also ask me any questions at the end of this Nearpod. All right, guys. Hopefully you had a good Monday. Welcome back to school, all that good stuff. And yeah, I'll talk to you later.